Good evening, everyone, and welcome for the fifth and final Lialusin Circle, full moon circle for the Armenian goddesses in 2025. Tonight, we are honoring Spandaramet, goddess of the underworld, goddess of our ancestors, and I hope you enjoy tonight's presentation. It's a little shorter than the last few, but I think it's really rich. And then we're going to enjoy a little guided meditation together. So, yeah, be a little bit of a different ride tonight for our final full moon. Program tonight will be basically the same outline that we've been doing, calling in the elemental guardians to get us started, honoring the ancestors, prayer of awakening to the goddesses, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the origins of Spandaramet, her role as mistress of the vines, and then Haley of Armenian folk magic is going to talk to us about folklore of the afterlife. Then we'll come back in, take a little look at the landscape of Spandaramet, and then explore a few points of personal practice. The stone of obsidian, grapes and grapevines in Armenia, and the symbol of serpents. And then a few suggestions for connecting to the goddess. And at that point, I will pause us briefly and we'll get settled in for our guided meditation. Any questions before we finish with our closing prayer?
Ivana, can you speak up a little bit, please? Thank you.
Is that better? Hopefully that's better.
Getting there.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, or Devana, sorry, it's very hard to hear you. It's so low. It's like,
wow, that's really interesting. I've got my volume up. I've got my volume way up.
it's nearly impossible. And then when everyone else speaks, the levels are really, really high, so it's super loud. And then yours is like almost impossible.
All right, apologies for any audio issues that we had there, but now we're ready to roll with this to get our presentation going. And just a quick note, Haley's presentation tonight is actually going to be about eclipses, since our full moon tonight is the full blood moon eclipse. So that will be super fascinating to hear. Calling in the elemental guardians. Baravtez, spirits of the east, guardians of air, Sovinar's thunder, wind, song, and breath, we call and welcome you to our circle tonight. Baravtez, spirits of the south, guardians of fire, the sacred sun, the hearth and spark of life, we call and welcome you to our circle tonight. Baravtez, spirits of the west, guardians of water, Lake Sevan, the inland seas, rivers and blood, we call and welcome you to our circle tonight. Baravtez, spirits of the north, guardians of earth, Mount Ararat, the Caucasus, stone and bone, we call and welcome you to our circle tonight. With respect and honor, blessed spirits of the land, bear witness and guard us as we awaken our ancestral wisdom and the timeless magic of our sacred goddesses. Honoring the ancestors. Take a moment now to prepare your space if you haven't done so yet. Light your candle for the goddesses, pour a little fresh water for your ancestors as we settle in, since tonight we are truly honoring our ancestors in connecting Spandaramet. Baravtez, ancestors and beloved dead, Tonight we lift your names to the heavens with the full moon as our witness. And now take a few moments to speak the names of your ancestors, the known and the unknown, and give them space in your ritual tonight. May the goddesses guide us to heal our traumas and mend our hearts, to witness our joys and join in our laughter, blessing us as we weave a new tapestry of sacred magical community. Prayer of Awakening. O beautiful, immortal goddesses of Armenia, we call to you, ancestors of blood, ancestors of spirit. We gather under this full moon, your scattered children, yearning to return to reclaim the lineage of our magic. Once you flourished in our hearts and in the land, long since eclipsed by war, conquest, and patriarchy, let us lift the veil of Christianity that has fallen so heavily and return you to the bright light of the sacred sun. With love and honor, we respect our family's faith, and with reverence, seek to unearth its tender roots. Walking side by side on these paths of love and spirit, may we each find the divine in her myriad faces. O beautiful and immortal goddesses of Armenia, rise up from the soil, the seas, and the sands of time. Return to us radiant, whole, and exalted in love. May your magic ignite in the flaming of the rose. Spandaramet, goddess of ancestors and the underworld. Spandaramet is the stillness that speaks of everything we've lost and carry. She is not death as absence. She is the ground we come from and to which we return. And this beautiful piece of art is by Marie Kadiguian, which I love. She's actually done a series on the Armenian goddesses. It's really beautiful. From Earth to Underworld. Spandaramet is a goddess whose cult appears to have been established in Armenia during the Zoroastrian influence of the Achaemenid Empire from the 6th to the 4th centuries BCE. Her name is derived from the Persian Spenta Armaiti, one of 7 Amisha Spenta, or immortal divine spirits, similar to archangels or angelic guardians. The Amisha Spenta were believed to be divine emanations of Ahura Mazda, the highest deity of Zoroastrian cosmology, a cognate of the Armenian Aramazd. Spenta Armaiti was the presiding spirit of the earth, her name meaning holy devotion or bounteous serenity. In the earliest form, the Amisha Spenta were more abstract concepts than personified forces, but over time they developed into distinct divinities. There were 3 female Amisha Spenta and 4 male, including Spenta Mayanu, which is essentially Ahura Mazda, who was the instrument or active principle of the act of creation. The Zoroastrian heptad. These are the names of the Amisha Spenta, with the variations from the original Gothic to Middle Persian to New Persian. So I am not going to embarrass myself by trying to pronounce all of these very specific ancient names of the Amisha Spenta, but I will just say that we have the guardian of humans and all creation, the guardian of cattle and all animals, guardian of fire and all other luminaries, guardian of metals and minerals, and Spandaramet or Spandaramet, guardian of the earth. This is our Spandaramet. And then the guardian of water and the guardian of plants. The Amisha Spenta were seen as gentle protective divinities and emanations of the divine source. They were not given the kinds of elemental associations with human characteristics that other pantheons expressed, such as Zeus, the sky father and king, or Aphrodite, the ocean-born goddess of love. Spenta Armaiti was seen as a kind of Mother Nature, a benevolent, nurturing, and protective figure, both embodying and guarding the earth itself. As the Zoroastrian religion infused the native pantheon of Armenia, Spenta Armaiti became Spandaramet, a guardian and embodiment of earth, but also assuming the chthonic qualities of an underworld goddess. The Armenian Spandaramet was most likely a pre-existing chthonic goddess or spirit who was syncretized with Armaiti, as well as assuming some chthonic qualities common to the Hellenistic deities. Armenia, as the crossroads between the two empires, was significantly influenced by both Zoroastrianism and Hellenic paganism. Excavating the original essence of the Armenian goddesses is a complex, long-term process that involves studying history and archaeology, the art and literature of neighboring lands and cultures, and finally teasing out the mythic threads that survive to us from the old oral folk traditions of Armenia. Spandaramet's underworld was not a place of punishment and torment like the Christian hell, but a place of peace and repose within or beneath the earth. As queen of the underworld, Spandaramet was believed to receive the souls of the deceased, where they would reside with her until such time as they might metaphorically transform into seeds and return to the living earth. There is a folk tale of a kindly old man who cherished the earth. When he passed from the world, he was met by three spirits: the spirit of memory, the spirit of deeds, and the spirit of fate, who tested his honesty, compassion, and reverence for nature. At their judgment, Spandaramet received him into her underworld realm and offered him a choice: to rest in eternal peace or return once more among the living. The old man chose peace, and his soul was sown as a seed, from which rose a tree crowned with golden leaves. In a later Christian context, the underworld of Spandaramet was inhabited by infernal spirits, or demons, called the Sandarametikan, I think I said that right, beings linked to the unsettling realm of the dead. These spirits embodied both the dread of death and the continuing presence of ancestors, dwelling beneath the soil in the dark domain of the goddess. Though fearsome, the Sandarametikan were not demons of pure malice. They played more of an ambiguous role, mediating between the living and the underworld. They were akin to the restless dead said to gather at crossroads and other dangerous liminal places, reminding the community of their ancestors' lingering presence, as well as their own eventual fate. In some traditions, these infernal spirits were thought to take the form of serpents. Mistress of the Vine. There is a curious connection between Spandaramet and the pan-Hellenic god of wine, Dionysos. Like Dionysos, she is linked to death, resurrection, agriculture, and the cycles of life, and may have been associated with ecstatic or initiatory ritual practices. Dionysos' resurrection, his ties to Hades, and his fertility-linked ecstatic rites echo Spandaramet's inherent connection to the earth, her underworld realm, and the dead, including infernal spirits and their potential resurrection. Spandaramet's natural association with vineyards and viticulture likely facilitated her conflation with Dionysos. The earliest known record of their relationship comes from a footnote by the medieval historian Togma Artsruni, who noted that King Artaxias II of Vaspurakan, from the 1st century BCE, constructed temples dedicated to Heracles and Dionysos. While Heracles corresponds to Vahagan in Armenian tradition, Dionysos was likely equated with Spandaramet due to their shared chthonic association with agriculture and viticulture, despite their differing genders. Given Armenia's long history of viticulture, with evidence of winemaking dating back over 6,000 years, grape cultivation and wine production were well established in Vaspurakan, where the temples were built. As early as the 8th century BCE, during the reign of King Argishti I, viticulture had already become a central part of Urartu's economy. Arriving several centuries later with Zoroastrianism, Spandaramet's cult would have naturally flourished in this context, setting the stage for her eventual association with Dionysos. And now I'm going to hand things over to Haley to talk to us about not the afterlife, but eclipses in Armenian.
So there is a lot of folklore tied between the eclipse and Vishaps in Armenian culture. So most kind of have an understanding of Bishop. I would think they're very common in our culture and certain stories. They are what would be our version of a dragon, but they would probably be more similar to what would be a chimera, which is like a mixture of different animal species, but they always seem to trace back to a serpent type of creature. They're mostly noted on what are called the Vishapakar or dragon stones. But they also do exist in folklore in various forms. In the more Christian rendition, they would be called saint snakes, which are the more guardians of gardens. But also they have been believed to also be baneful. They're more beings that exist in a gray area between good and bad. They do actually have an underworld and afterlife connection, as the Vishaps are often been believed to live within mountains or underneath mountains. There's also been certain Vishapakara that we've found actual bodies, people who have been buried underneath these stones. So the connection to deep within the earth actually is really strong. In most cultures around the world, the eclipse is not really seen as a fun thing. Armenians, especially, as we were known for being sun worshippers, it probably would have been extremely terrifying for an eclipse. In Mesopotamia, there were tons of different beliefs around the world ending with eclipses, or how it was very damaging to the people, and for Armenians, it existed as well. There isn't much necessarily specifically about eclipses, but about a Vishap consuming the sun. And that is most likely where this belief stems from, is the eclipse. We did mention a little bit about Vahagan earlier. Vahagan's birth stories, he is known for having hair like fire and suns for eyes, and he is known for destroying the Vishap that try to harm people and the world around us. He's kind of perceived as protector that would go on to form, later be perceived as Saint George in the Christian tradition. These Vishaps have been sometimes connected to earthquakes, as their roars would rumble the mountains, and be also connected to the volcanoes in Anatolia. So the folklore around, preventing these dragons from consuming the sun really did exist in a lot of folklore, in pre-Christian, even into Christian folklore of Armenians. A big thing that actually was done, a type of folk ritual, was the blacksmiths, who were almost similar to priests, as they were able to marry people. They would have that type of power. They existed as very important people in Armenian society. And another responsibility of theirs was to strengthen the chains that existed around the Vishap within the mountains so they couldn't escape and later consume the sun. So they would bang on an anvil 3 times, I believe every Sunday, and it was a form of strengthening that. But it also, this fear also represented how everyone in the community is responsible for how they would prevent the demise of our people. As one of the myths is there was a prince who would turn into a Vishap or was very tied to the Vishaps, and he had to be imprisoned, even though he had actually once fought against them. And whether you're a prince or, royalty or a commoner, you all had to kind of work together to prevent the destruction of the sun. So a lot of our folklore did continue, and actually it seems most of the folklore revolved around the sun and the Vishap were being against each other, existed on. So yeah, that is that.
Thank you so much for that, Haley. A little bit about eclipses and their connection to the underworld and the afterlife. So now I'm just going to talk about a few points of Spandaramet then and now, a little bit about how she was worshipped in her time, and then some points of my modern personal practice. Underworld temples. Temples or sacred sites dedicated to Spandaramet are notoriously difficult to identify in the historical and archaeological record. Unlike more visible above-ground shrines or monumental temples built for solar or sky deities, Spandaramet's cult was rooted in the chthonic realm and the cycles of life, death, and the earth. Consequently, references to her worship are often obscured by syncretic identifications, such as linking her to the Greek Dionysos or other fertility deities, rather than naming explicit standalone structures. Another difficulty stems from the nature of Spandaramet's domain. As a goddess primarily of the underworld and the dead, she was not so easily suited to traditional temples that were publicly visible and celebratory. Additionally, because the Amisha Spentas were not personified and venerated like other indigenous deities, icons, shrines, and formal temples did not become part of her worship. Instead, her sacred spaces were often natural features, caves, springs, or particular rock formations that could be conceived as entrances to the underworld. These liminal landscapes provided a fitting locus for rituals connecting the living with the dead, calling forth her role as a mediator between the mortal world and the hidden subterranean realm. Spandaramet in situ. There are 3 temples mentioned in historical literature that could potentially be identified with Spandaramet, though these associations are speculative and based on syncretistic identifications. Their guesstimated locations can be seen on the map here. The first is the Temple of Gisane and Dimitur, which was said to be located on the outskirts of Mush, that is the blue dot here, at a place called Inaknian, meaning the place of 9 springs. So who Gisane and Dimitur are is a sort of a subject of debate. Some say they were brothers, like foreigner gods who were brothers from India who came and had a cult established here. Others say that one was a male god and that Dimitur was actually cognate of Demeter, or Demeter of the Greek pantheon. But at any rate, in this context, Demeter is equated with Spandaramet, or presumed to be Spandaramet. The second is the temple to Dionysos and Heracles, which is indicated by the gold dot. And this is in Lesser Alpbach in Vaspurakan, which likely reflects the Hellenistic syncretism of Spandaramet with Dionysos. The third is a temple of Spandaramet, which is the red dot here, referred to by the Armenian historian Agathangelos, who recounts the vision of Saint Gregory the Illuminator. Jesus Christ descended to Vagarshapat from heaven and pounded on the pagan Spandaramet temple with a golden hammer. The Illuminator, with the help of King Terdat III, the Nakharars, and the faithful, following divine directions, destroyed the temple and established in its place the Mother Sea, named Echmiadzin, which means the place of the descent of the only begotten. Incidentally, this temple is also sometimes associated with Anahit, so they're both Anahit and Spandaramet have been named as potential ancestors to this site. So this narrative clearly describes the Christianization and the ultimate transformation of Armenia's religious landscape in those first few centuries of this era. Materia Magica, obsidian. Armenia is rich in obsidian, a naturally occurring volcanic glass concentrated in regions such as Gegam, Aragats, and Syunik. It has been used for over 10,000 years, with archaeological sites revealing finely crafted blades, scrapers, and projectile points from the Paleolithic and Neolithic periods. Obsidian's sharpness, durability, and glossy surface made it highly valued for practical purposes and long-distance trade. Beyond practical use, obsidian carried symbolic and ritual significance in several ancient cultures. In Mesoamerica, for example, obsidian was associated with the underworld, death, and protective magic, and it was used in ritual knives and mirrors. In Anatolia, the oldest known mirrors in the world of polished obsidian were unearthed in a tomb in Çatalhöyük. The reflective and dark qualities of obsidian suggest that it may have held a special status, resonating with the same liminal subterranean qualities later associated with deities like Spandaramet, the goddess of earth and underworld. Grapes and vines. Like I mentioned before with our mistress of the vines, grapes and viticulture have held profound economic, cultural, and spiritual significance in Armenia for millennia. Fertile valleys and a favorable climate made the region ideal for grape cultivation, and archaeological evidence, including the Arani 1 winery that dates to about 4100 BCE. This attests to a long-standing tradition of winemaking in the land. Wine was not only a staple of daily life from the most ancient of times, but was also central to ritual and ceremonial contexts, symbolizing fertility, agricultural abundance, and divine favor. In Armenian ritual practice, the harvest of grapes is still celebrated in festivals such as Kagogornek, marking the first crushing of the grapes, and Astvadzadzin Day, the Annunciation of Virgin Mary, when the fruits of the vine were offered in her devotion. Vine leaves and clusters were also thought to protect the land, bless the harvest, and honor ancestral spirits, reflecting the deep spiritual connection between the people, the earth, and the cycles of life in Armenia. This reverence for grapes and wine continues in Christian ritual through the Holy Badarak, Eucharist, where wine embodies life and divine blessing, and in the blessing of the grapes, sanctifying the first fruits of the harvest. These practices preserve the living connection to the earth, to ancestral devotion, and to the sacred forces once embodied by Spandaramet, linking Armenia's ancient agricultural legacy with its enduring spiritual traditions. Symbola Sacra. the serpent. Snakes and serpents in ancient Armenia embodied the hidden powers of the underworld, appearing as guardians of graves, household protectors, and symbols of ancestral spirits. Their sinuous passage through earth and stone reflected the soul's journey, while their prolific egg-laying and shedding of skin made them emblems of fertility, renewal, and resurrection. Ancestral spirits could manifest as snakes in the home, offering protection and good fortune. These were known as spod, invisible beings who lived in the walls of houses during the winter. In Christian times, the Spandaramet and Sahapets were sometimes believed to take the form of serpents in Armenia. The Arsacid king Pap, son of Queen Paranzam from the 4th century CE, is described by 5th century Armenian cleric historian Pastos Buzand as being possessed of demons, having serpents sprouting from his shoulders. Pap was believed to have Zoroastrian sympathies, which isn't a huge surprise considering he was born just 2 generations after the official adoption of Christianity as the state religion. The long-standing pagan religion likely took several hundred years to be fully eradicated. Snakes were revered as guardians, with valuables sometimes hidden beneath stones engraved with serpents, and households called upon fakirs, special snake charmers, to safely lure snakes away with rituals and offerings of milk. In Christian Armenia, serpents were still seen as symbols of wisdom, famously reflected in the gospel injunction to be wise as a serpent and pure as a dove, and in the Catholicos staff, which is topped with a snake head as a mark of his authority. Across the centuries, serpents remained potent magical figures, sacred symbols of the earth and underworld, echoing Spandaramet's legacy. Connecting with Spandaramet. Touch the earth. A modern way to honor Spandaramet is through quiet acts of respect for the earth and remembrance of the ancestors. As a goddess of fertility, vineyards, and the underworld, connect with her by tending the soil, planting a vine or tree, or offering a simple libation of wine or water to the ground in gratitude. Reach out to her when visiting graves or lighting candles for departed loved ones, asking for her blessings and protection throughout the continuity of life and death. Make offerings of obsidian or black tourmaline, another protective chthonic crystal, grapes, raisins, or wine. Gestures of reverence for the land, its fruits, and the memory of those who came before are perfect ways of honoring Spandaramet. Bones and stones. To explore a chthonic form of divination and reflection, put together an osteomancy set and dedicate it to Spandaramet. This can be any assortment of small bones, shells, stones, or crystals, and even more significant if they are connected to your family, your ancestors, or the lands of Armenia, historical or modern. You can assign specific meanings to these items and use them as a sortilege system, or just draw them out from time to time and see what your intuition calls up as meaningful in their combinations. And that is the end of our educational portion of tonight. So I'm going to stop my share and just invite you all to relax, get comfortable. If you want to go off screen, that's absolutely fine. And we'll do our little guided meditation before we go for the closing prayer and end the evening. Thank you, Haley. Haley's gonna take her leave tonight. Thank you for your awesome presentation.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.
Okay, I am also going to go off screen for this so I can get in my proper spirit space. And I'll just give us about like minute and a half to get settled. Once you get yourself settled in a relaxed position, maybe dim your lights, keep your candle nearby for the ancestors, and any special object, any connection to an ancestor that you'd like to reach out to, you can have that in hand as well. Just begin by taking a series of deep breaths, breathing in, letting that fresh air wash through your body into your lungs, and your heart, and into your veins, washing through, cleansing breaths, deepening your connection to the earth with each out breath. Feel the connection of your feet upon the earth. Feel the energy of the earth coming to greet you, rising up gently through the soil, through the stones, through the floor, and up into your body, creating a strong, stable connection. Where you sit, where you stand, this place has been in existence for hundreds, thousands, millions of years, witnessing life in all of its cycles, and witnessing you, witnessing us in this time and place. In your mind's eye, before you, you see a vast expanse of land, fields, vineyards, hills and mountains in the distance. And you begin to walk across this land, feeling the gentle earth beneath your feet, feeling the soil, the sand and the dust. The surface of Spandaramet herself, where her underworld realm meets the realm of earth, plant, animal, and people. Ahead in this vast expanse, you can hear the gentle sound of water. And you notice that you're coming to a spring. Spring pouring forth through a cleft in the earth. And you kneel before this spring. Cool water flows up, and you reach and take a handful of this crisp, cleansing water. You take a drink, Maybe you pour a little bit of it over your head, just as a simple blessing, a simple purification as you journey tonight to meet the goddess and the spirits that she protects. Just beyond the cleft in the earth where the spring pours forth, you see a cave formed in the earth. It is wide and dark, and you can see the flickering of a torch or a candle or a light at the back of this mysterious cavern. The light beckons you forward. The cool air is comforting on your skin, and there's a sense of familiarity here, as if this is a place you've been before, a place that you know well, where you have met loved ones in times past, where you've been able to connect over the bridges of time and space. Within this cavern, this comforting womb of the earth, you kneel down. Before you, there is a small candle burning, and in your hand, some small offering that you've brought for the goddess to open the portal to her subterranean realm. Continue taking your deep breaths, feeling into the earth beneath you. And slowly you begin to feel a warmth coming forth, a presence full of love and comfort and welcoming. You can sense the goddess rising up from the earth to greet you, knowing that you've come tonight to give offerings, to honor her and the earth, and to reach out to your beloved dead, those who have been in her keeping and under her protection for all these many years. She rises before you in earthen splendor, warm, welcoming eyes, and a kind smile. She reaches her hands out towards you, gesturing you to rise. Do you take her hands? They're warm in yours. And the goddess sends you her quiet blessings, her silent words of welcome, and her heart full of love for you and all those who have come before you. And she says, "Dear one, you've come tonight to reconnect with someone in your beloved dead that you wish to receive a message from. I am here to invite them to come and greet you. Speak their name, dear child, and and your beloved dead will come and take my place. And as she says this, she brings your hands together in a gentle embrace, thanking you for your offerings and opening the door for your ancestors to come through. When you see your familiar spirits, give them your messages, send them your love, ask them questions, receive their wisdom in these quiet moments. Take this time to remember this experience. Remember these precious moments. It is time to return now to your own place and time. As you bid farewell to your beloved departed, you sense the vast presence of the goddess returning to escort them back to the land beyond. Her presence fills the cave, and you feel her gentle farewell settling into your body, and her warm wishes grounding your feet as you turn to return home. You pass by the bubbling spring in the cleft in the earth and continue on through the vineyards, through the fields, back into this familiar time and place, back to your body and your steady breath, rooted where you are in this time and place. Gratitude to Spandaramet, gratitude and love to the ancestors. May we always have this bridge that can be crossed in devotion. When you feel ready and relaxed again in your seat, feel free to open your eyes, move your body, open your hands, and come back on screen when you're ready. Welcome back. So I am going to pop back into my screen share so that we can say the closing prayer together, and then we'll close the recording and come back for any final reflections. Welcome back to the digital landscape, everyone. May the goddesses rise and the land be healed. May the ancestors preside as our magic is sealed. Gratitude and reverence to Spandaramet and all of our beloved dead. Thank you so much, everyone, for being part of this magic and for making this series of Lialusin full moon circles so beautiful and rewarding for me and hopefully for all of us. Thank you again, everyone, so much.